The email arrived on a Tuesday morning, buried between client reports and meeting invitations. I almost missed it, but my mother's name in the subject line caught my attention. FOD. Message from your father. Charlotte, please read. I stared at my computer screen, coffee forgotten in my hand. 15 years of silence, and now an email forwarded by my mother. My name is Sophie Chen, and at 32, I was about to face the man who had walked out of my life when I was 17. The phone rang, making me jump. Mom's number flashed on the screen. Did you see it? She asked when I answered, skipping any greeting. I'm looking at it now, I said, still not opening the email. Why are you forwarding me messages from him? My mother sighed. Just read it, Sophie, then call me back. She hung up before I could argue. Taking a deep breath, I clicked on the email. Charlotte, I hope this email finds you well. I know it's been a long time, and I have no right to ask anything of you or Sophie, but I'm in trouble. The company is failing, bad investments, market changes, things I should have seen coming. The board is talking about forcing me out. I've been following Sophie's career. She's become quite the business turnaround specialist. I've seen what she did for Yang Industries last year. I need that kind of help now. Please talk to her for me. David. I laughed, the sound harsh in my quiet home office. Of course. Of course he wouldn't contact me directly. Of course he'd try to use my mother as an intermediary. And of course he'd only reach out when he needed something. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Did you read it? I called her back. You can't be serious, I said as soon as she answered. He abandons us, starts a new family, ignores us for 15 years, and now he wants my help. Sophie, she said softly, I know, believe me, I know. But what? But he's still your father. I closed my eyes, memories flooding back. Dad teaching me basic accounting at the kitchen table when I was 10. The pride in his voice when I got into business school. The way he promised to always be there for me. Then came the day he told us about Linda, his pregnant secretary. The day he chose his new family over us. The day everything changed. He stopped being my father the day he walked out, I said firmly. The day he missed my high school graduation to be at his new son's birth. The day he didn't show up when you were diagnosed with cancer. Mom was quiet for a moment. I'm not defending him, Sophie. God knows I spent years being angry. But maybe this is an opportunity. An opportunity for what? For closure. For answers. For whatever you need. I looked at the framed photo on my desk. Mom and me at my MBA graduation, both of us smiling despite the empty seat where Dad should have been. I'll think about it, I said finally. After we hung up, I did what I always did when faced with a difficult decision. I called my best friend, Maya. He's got some nerve, Maya declared after I filled her in. We were meeting for lunch at our usual spot, a small cafe near my office. That's what I thought, I agreed, picking at my salad. But Mom thinks I should consider it. Maya studied me over her sandwich. And what do you think? I paused, trying to sort through the tangle of emotions. I think part of me wants to tell him to go to hell. But another part wants to prove something. I nodded slowly. Is that petty? No, Maya said firmly. He walked out on you, built this perfect new life with his perfect new family. Now his empire's crumbling and he needs the daughter he abandoned to save him. That's some karmic justice right there. She had a point. After leaving us, Dad had poured everything into Cheng Global Ventures, building it into one of the most successful investment firms in Seattle. His new family, Linda and their kids, Thomas and Emily, were fixtures in the society pages. The perfect businessman with his perfect young wife and their perfect children. Meanwhile, Mom and I had rebuilt our lives from scratch. She'd gone back to teaching, working extra tutoring jobs to help put me through college. I'd worked my way through business school, determined to succeed not because of my father's name, but in spite of it. Now I was known in business circles as the person you called when your company needed saving. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed. Another text from Mom. David's secretary called. He wants to set up a meeting. I showed Maya the message. Are you going to do it? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to see him squirm. But is that a good enough reason? Maybe not, Maya said, but proving that you succeeded without him. That might be. That night, I dug out the box I kept in the back of my closet, my dad box, as I called it. News clippings about his business success, photos of his new family from social media, the last birthday card he'd sent before stopping completely. There was also a folder of articles about me, carefully collected by Mom over the years. My graduation from Harvard Business School. My first major corporate turnaround. The profile in Business Weekly calling me the miracle worker of failing companies. I wondered if he'd really been following my career, or if that was just something he said to butter me up. Had he felt proud when he saw my successes, or had he been too busy with Thomas and Emily to notice? My phone rang again. Mom. His secretary called again, she said when I answered. The board meeting is in 3 weeks. He wants to meet tomorrow. I looked at the articles spread across my bed. Did you know he was in trouble? Before this? No, she said. But I don't exactly keep up with Chen Global News. What do you think I should do? She was quiet for a moment. I think you should do whatever will let you sleep at night. If that means telling him no, I'll support you. If it means helping him, I'll support that too. After we hung up, I sat for a long time looking at an old family photo. The 3 of us at Disneyland when I was 12. We looked so happy, so unaware that 5 years later our family would shatter. Finally, I picked up my phone and typed a message to Dad's secretary. Tell Mr. Chen I'll meet with him tomorrow. 9 a.m., my office. If he wanted my help, he could come to me. The next morning, I arrived at my office early, deliberately choosing my outfit, a sharp black suit that screamed success and authority. Maya had sent a good luck text. Remember, you're the one with the power now. At exactly 9 a.m., my assistant buzzed me. Mr. Chen is here. Send him in. The man who walked into my office was both familiar and a stranger. His hair had gone completely gray, and he moved more slowly than I remembered. But his eyes were the same, dark and intense, always calculating. Sophie, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You look so grown up. That tends to happen in 15 years, I replied coolly. Please sit. He sat in one of the chairs facing my desk, looking uncomfortable. Good. Thank you for meeting with me, he began. I know I don't deserve. Let's keep this professional, I cut him off. You're here because Chen Global is in trouble. Tell me about it. He flinched at my tone but nodded. We've had some bad investments, a development project in Singapore that went south, a tech startup that turned out to be fraudulent. The board is losing confidence, and your CFO? Resigned last month. The numbers, they're not good. I pulled up the company's financial reports on my tablet, public information anyone could access. You've lost 40% of your value in 6 months. Your stock is tanking. 3 major investors have pulled out. I looked up at him. This isn't just bad luck, Dad. This is mismanagement. He winced at my use of Dad, the way I said it like a business term rather than a title of affection. I know, he admitted. I got complacent. Comfortable. I stopped paying attention to the details. Too busy with your other priorities. The words came out sharper than I intended. He looked down at his hands. Sophie, I know I hurt you. If I could go back. But you can't, I interrupted. And that's not why we're here. You want my help saving your company. Why should I give it? Because despite everything, we're still family. I laughed, the sound brittle. Family? Where was family when Mom got sick? When I graduated? When I started my own company? When I stopped myself. This wasn't about that. It couldn't be about that. If you want my help, I said, my voice steady again. These are my terms. I'll do a complete audit of Chen Global. Every department, every decision, every number. If I find anything illegal or unethical, I walk away and you're on your own. If I think the company can be saved, I'll develop a turnaround plan. But I run it my way. Of course, he said quickly, whatever you need. I'm not doing this for you, I continued. I'm doing it because 300 people work for Chen Global. They don't deserve to lose their jobs because of your mistakes. He nodded, but I wasn't finished. One more thing, I added. Don't try to use Mom as a go-between again, and don't expect this to fix anything between us. This is business, nothing more. I understand, he said softly. Thank you, Sophie. As he stood to leave, he paused at the door. For what it's worth, I am proud of you, of what you've accomplished. You lost the right to be proud of me when you walked away, I said. The meeting with your board is in 3 weeks. I'll need full access to all company records starting tomorrow. He nodded and left. As soon as the door closed behind him, I let out a shaky breath. Maya called almost immediately. How did it go? I'm doing it, I said. I'm going to try to save his company. And how do you feel about that? I looked at the family photo I dug out last night, now sitting face down in my desk drawer. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm about to spend 3 weeks digging through every decision he's made in the past 15 years. Maybe I'll find some answers of my own along the way. The next 3 weeks were a deep dive into the world of Cheng Global Ventures. I assembled my best team and set up in a conference room at their headquarters, demanding access to everything: financial records, board minutes, investment decisions, personnel files. What I found was worse than I'd expected. He's been hiding losses, I told Maya over dinner one night, a week into the audit, moving money between accounts, inflating projections, covering up failed investments. Is it illegal? She asked. I shook my head. Not technically, but it's reckless. And it all started around the time Thomas started college. Thomas, my half-brother who I'd never met. The golden boy whose education apparently required multiple risky investments to fund. The deeper I dug, the more patterns emerged. Dad had started taking bigger risks around the same time Linda started appearing in society magazines wearing increasingly expensive jewelry. He covered losses from one bad investment by making even riskier ones, always trying to maintain the perfect image of success. It's like watching someone's midlife crisis play out in spreadsheets, I told Mom when she called to check on me. Are you okay? She asked. Being there, dealing with him every day. I was avoiding him as much as possible, but we still had daily briefings where I updated him on my findings. He looked more haggard each time, especially after I started questioning his decisions. Why did you invest $5 million in a cryptocurrency startup with no track record? I asked during one meeting. Thomas was interested in crypto, he'd admitted. I wanted to show him the business. I just stared at him. $5 million to impress a 20-year-old who, according to his social media, spent most of his time partying on yachts. Then, during the second week, I found something interesting in the personnel files. Did you know Linda's been the company's head of PR for the past 5 years? I asked Mom, with a salary that's definitely not industry standard. What do you mean? I mean she's being paid 3 times what a PR director at a company this size should make. And her department's budget is creative. The next day, I had a visitor in my temporary office, Linda herself. She looked exactly like her photos, perfectly maintained, not a hair out of place. The diamond on her finger probably cost more than my first car. Sophie, she said warmly, as if we were old friends. I've been hoping to talk to you. About what? About all this unpleasantness. She gestured vaguely. Surely there's a way to handle things quietly? I looked at the spreadsheet on my screen, her department's expenses for the past year. You mean like how you've been handling the company's image, creating fake PR campaigns to justify your inflated budget? Her smile faltered slightly. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. I turned my laptop to face her. These events that never happened. These consultants who don't exist. Where did the money really go, Linda? You're just like your mother, she said, her warm tone turning cold. Always looking for problems where there aren't any. No, I corrected her. I'm worse. I actually find them. After she left, I called my forensic accountant. Tom, I need you to dig deeper into the PR department's finances. Everything for the past 5 years. 2 days later, Tom came to me with what he'd found. It was exactly what I'd suspected. Linda had been using her position to funnel company money into personal accounts. Does your father know? Maya asked when I told her. I don't think so, I said. He's been so focused on making bigger deals to cover his losses, he stopped paying attention to the day-to-day operations. Are you going to tell him? I looked at the report on my desk. I have to. It's not just about him anymore. The shareholders have a right to know. The meeting with Dad was set for the next morning. I arrived early, preparing my presentation on the company's overall situation. When he walked in, he wasn't alone. Linda was with him. Sophie, he said, looking nervous. Linda thought she should be here, since this involves the whole company. I smiled tightly. Actually, I'm glad she's here. Please sit down. For the next hour, I walked them through everything I'd found, the hidden losses, the risky investments, the mismanaged funds. Dad grew paler with each slide. Then I got to the PR department. Over the past 5 years, I said, pulling up the relevant documents, approximately $12 million has been misappropriated through fake events and non-existent consultants. Linda's perfectly manicured nails dug into the armrests of her chair. The money was transferred through a series of shell companies, eventually ending up in private accounts in the Cayman Islands. I looked directly at Linda. Accounts in your name. The silence that followed was deafening. That's ridiculous, Linda finally sputtered. David, she's lying. She's trying to destroy us because she's jealous. The documentation is all here. I cut her off, sliding a folder across the table. The board gets their copy in tomorrow's meeting. Dad hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. He just stared at the papers in front of him. $12 million, he said finally, his voice hollow. While the company was struggling. While people's jobs were at risk. David, Linda started, but he held up a hand. Get out, he said quietly. What? Get out, he shouted, making us both jump. Go home. Pack your things. Just go. She left, her designer heels clicking angrily on the floor. Dad and I sat in silence for a long moment. Did you know? I asked finally. He shook his head. I trusted her. Just like I trusted that crypto startup because Thomas was interested. Just like I've been trusting all the wrong people for years. While pushing away the right ones, I added quietly. He looked at me then, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in 15 years. I was so focused on not failing them, he said, that I didn't realize I'd already failed you. The company can be saved, I said, changing the subject. But it will take work. Real work, not just throwing money at problems. And the board needs to know everything. He nodded slowly. What do you recommend? Full disclosure at tomorrow's meeting. A restructuring plan. New management in key positions. I paused. And you need to step down as CEO. What? You've lost the board's trust. More importantly, you've lost your employees' trust. The company needs a fresh start. He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked, will you take over? I stared at him, surprised. Me? You're qualified. You understand the business. And you've proven you can make the hard decisions. I shook my head. No, I have my own company, my own life. I'm here to help with the transition, that's all. Because you still hate me. Because I don't need your company to prove myself anymore. I corrected him. I did that on my own, remember. The board meeting the next day was brutal but necessary. Everything came out. The losses, Linda's embezzlement, the years of mismanagement. Dad resigned as CEO, agreeing to stay on as a consultant during the transition. Linda was arrested 2 days later, trying to board a flight to the Caymans. A month after my initial meeting with Dad, Chen Global had a new CEO, Janet Wong, a highly respected industry veteran I'd recommended. The company's stock was slowly recovering as the market responded to the transparency and new leadership. Dad called me to his office on my last day. Thank you, he said simply, not just for saving the company, but for showing me the truth. I nodded, gathering my things to leave. Sophie, he called as I reached the door. Would you consider having dinner with me sometime? Just to talk. I thought about Mom's words from a month ago. Do whatever will let you sleep at night. I can't promise anything, I said carefully, but maybe we can start with coffee. His face lit up with cautious hope. Coffee would be wonderful. 2 weeks later, we met at a small cafe halfway between our offices. It was awkward and painful and necessary. The first of many difficult conversations about the past 15 years. I've been thinking, he said during our third coffee meeting, about what you said about pushing away the right people. Oh, I'd like to apologize to your mother. Not to try to fix things, just, she deserves to hear it. I studied him over my cup. She's dating someone, has been for 2 years. He's good to her. I'm glad, he said, and seemed to mean it. She deserves to be happy. Slowly, carefully, we began rebuilding something. Not what we had before, that was gone forever. But something new, something based on who we were now rather than who we'd been. Are you sure about this? Maya asked when I told her about our coffee meetings. After everything he did? No, I admitted. But I'm sure about one thing. I'm not doing it for him. I'm doing it for me. For that 17-year-old girl who needed to know why her dad left. Mom was supportive in her own way. Just be careful with your heart, she advised. But also remember, forgiveness isn't about deserving it. It's about choosing to let go of the pain. A year later, I sat in my office looking at two photos on my desk. The old one of Mom and me at my MBA graduation, and a new one, Dad and me at a charity event where I'd been honored for my work with struggling businesses. My phone buzzed with a text from him. Proud of your new project. Thomas could learn a lot from you about business if you're ever interested in meeting him. I smiled slightly. Some bridges weren't ready to be crossed yet, but others. I picked up my phone and typed, "Coffee tomorrow?" His reply came quickly. Wouldn't miss it. Sometimes the hardest companies to save are the ones closest to home. And sometimes the biggest turnarounds aren't about business at all. They're about finding the courage to give second chances, even when they're not deserved. That night, I added a new article to my dad box, a piece about Chen Global's successful restructuring. But this time, I didn't hide the box away. Some stories need to be remembered, not buried. Because sometimes the ending isn't about going back to what was lost, but about building something new from the pieces that remain.